Captain Reed Martinez stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the stars pass by. The ship was called Horizon's Edge, and it was moving through space toward the edge of the galaxy. Reed and his crew were supposed to find new planets that humans could live on. They were also looking for things that Earth might need, like metals and water. It was supposed to be a simple job, but nothing in space was ever simple, the ship's computer made a soft sound, and Amy Stone looked up from her station. Amy was the person who handled all the messages that came to the ship. She had been doing this job for 5 years, and she was very good at it. Today she looked worried. "Captain, we are getting a signal from the planet below us," Amy said. "It is. Very weak, but someone is definitely trying to talk to us." Reed looked at the big screen that showed the planet. It was beautiful with blue oceans and white clouds. There were cities on the surface that looked like they were made of crystal. The cities caught the light from the planet's 2 suns and sparkled like diamonds. But something was wrong. There were huge black ships in the sky above the planet. The ships were taking something from the air around the planet. "What are those ships doing?" Reed asked. Don Rivers was the science officer on the ship. He was young, but he knew a lot about space and planets. Don looked at his instruments and his face became pale. "Captain, those ships are stealing the air from the planet. The people down there will not be able to breathe soon. Those ships belong to the Dominion." Reed knew about the Dominion. They were a group of powerful alien races that controlled most of the galaxy. They took whatever they wanted from weaker planets. Earth had heard stories about them, but humans had never met them before. "Put the signal on the main screen," Reed said. The screen flickered and then showed a creature that looked almost human, but not quite. Its skin was pale and seemed to glow softly. Its eyes were large and filled with sadness. When it spoke, the ship's computer changed its words into English. "Unknown ship, please listen to us. I am Elder Nim of the Cathara people. We know you are not part of the Dominion fleets. We can see that your ship is different. Please, if your people have any kindness in them, remember us. We do not ask you to fight for us. We do not ask you to save us. We only ask that you remember our story when we are gone." The alien's voice was calm, but Reed could hear the pain in it. Elder Nim continued to speak. "We are the Cathara. We have lived on this world for 10,000 years. We built these cities with our own hands. We never hurt anyone. We never took anything that did not belong to us. But the Dominion says our world has things they need. They say we are too weak to deserve our own home. Soon we will all be dead, and our cities will be empty. Please, stranger, remember that we lived. Remember that we loved our families. Remember that we tried to be good." Reed felt something tight in his chest. He had seen many things in space, but he had never seen anything like this. The Cathara were going to die, and they were not even asking for help. They just wanted someone to remember them. Amy wiped tears from her eyes. Don was staring at the screen with his mouth open. The whole bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. "Captain," Amy whispered, "there are more signals coming in. Lots of them." The screen changed and showed other aliens. Some looked like giant insects. Others looked like walking trees. Some looked like nothing Reed had ever seen before. But they all had the same look in their eyes. They were all afraid and sad and hopeless. "We are the Veltar. Our home was destroyed for its minerals. Please remember us. We are the Quillen. Our children were taken to be soldiers. Please remember us. We are the Moradi. Our people were made into slaves. Please remember us." The messages kept coming. Dozens of different alien races, all asking for the same thing. They all wanted to be remembered. They called themselves the Forgotten. Reed made a decision that would change everything. He told Amy to open a channel so he could talk back to them. "This is Captain Reed Martinez of the human ship Horizon's Edge. We hear you. We will remember you. But maybe we can do more than just remember." Elder Nim's glowing face appeared on the screen again. "Human Captain, you are kind, but you do not understand. The Dominion has thousands of ships. They have weapons that can destroy whole planets. Your one ship cannot stop them." "Maybe not," Reed said, "but I know humans. When we see something that is not right, we do not just watch, we try to fix it. Give you some time to think, Reed turned to his crew. Amy, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them what we found here. Don, starts scanning all the Dominion ships. I want to know everything about them. Everyone else start thinking because we are going to need a plan. The next few hours were busy. Messages went back and forth between the ship and Earth. The crew learned that the Dominion had been doing this for hundreds of years. They would find weaker planets and take whatever they wanted. Sometimes they killed everyone on the planet. Sometimes they made them slaves. The galactic government knew about it, but they said it was not their problem. Reed could not believe what he was hearing. How could anyone know about this and do nothing? How could they watch entire races die and just say it was not their problem? Captain, Amy said, we have an answer from Earth Command. Reed read the message and smiled. Earth was sending ships. Not just a few ships, but a whole fleet. Humanity had decided that the forgotten would not be forgotten anymore. Reed opened the channel. To Elder Nim again. We have good news. Help is coming. But first we need to keep you alive until it gets here. Are you willing to fight for your world? For the first time, Elder Nim's glowing face showed hope. Yes, human captain. If you will stand with us, we will fight. Reed looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all nodding. They were all ready to fight for people they had never met before. That was what made humans different. They cared about strangers. They would fight for people who could. Not fight for themselves? Then let's get started, Reed said. 3 days had passed since Reed first spoke with Elder Nim. The horizon's edge was now hidden behind a large asteroid where the Dominion ships could not see it. Reed and his crew had been working without sleep to help the Cathara people. They had sent small robots to the planet's surface to set up communication devices. Now the Cathara could talk to each other across their whole world, but the most surprising thing was what happened next. When other alien races heard that humans were helping the Cathara, they started calling too. The communication system on the horizon's edge was getting hundreds of messages every hour. Amy had to ask for help from other crew members just to answer them all. Captain, you need to see this, Amy said. She looked tired but excited. We are getting calls from all over this part of the galaxy. There are so many species that the Dominion has hurt. They have been hiding and running for years. They call themselves the Forgotten. Reed looked at the star map on the main screen. There were red dots scattered across dozens of star systems. Each dot was a group of aliens who had lost their homes to the Dominion. Some were living on broken ships. Others were hiding on dead planets. Many were just trying to survive in the cold darkness of space. How many are there? Reed asked. Don had been counting the signals. Over 40 different species, Captain. Some we have never heard of before. They have been scattered across the outer edge of the galaxy for decades. Most of them thought they were alone. Reed opened a channel to speak with all of them at once. This is Captain Martinez. We know you have been hurt by the Dominion. We know you have been hiding and afraid, but you are not alone anymore. Humans want to help you. The responses came quickly. Some aliens were grateful, others were suspicious. Many were afraid that helping humans would just make the Dominion angrier. A new voice came through the communicator. It was deep and rough like rocks grinding together. Human, I am Cora of the Veltar. I was born in a Dominion mine. I watched my parents die digging crystals for their ships. Why should we trust you? What do you want from us? Reed understood why Cora was suspicious. The Veltar had been slaves for so long that they did not trust anyone. We don't want anything from you. We just think what the Dominion is doing is wrong. We want to help you get your freedom back. Another voice joined the conversation. This one was soft and musical. I am Zala of the Quillen. Our children were taken from us to fight in Dominion armies. Many of us have nothing left to lose. If you truly want to help us, what can we do? Reed had been thinking about this question for days. We cannot fight the Dominion with weapons. They have too many ships and too many soldiers. But we can fight. them in other ways. We can help you hide better. We can help you communicate with each other. We can help you work together instead of being alone. Elder Nim's voice came through the channel. Captain Martinez, the Dominion fleet is preparing to attack our world. They will begin in 2 days. If you are going to help us, it must be soon. Reed looked at his crew. They had been working on plans, but they needed more time. Don, do we have those scan results on the Dominion ships? Don nodded and put the information on the main screen. Their ships are powerful, but they are old. They use the same designs they have been using for hundreds of years. They never change because they never have to. No one has ever fought back before. What about their weapons? Reed asked. Most of their weapons are designed to destroy big targets like cities and military bases. They are not good at fighting small, fast ships. Also, their sensors are not very good. They expect to see their enemies coming from far away. Reed smiled. Then we have a chance. Amy, send a message to all the forgotten species. Tell them we have a plan, but we need everyone to work together. Over the next day, Reed and his crew worked with aliens from across the galaxy. The Kithara were good at building things quickly. The Veltar knew how to hide in asteroid fields. The Quillen were experts at growing food in space. The Marathi were skilled at moving quietly through space. Each species had skills that could help the others. The humans provided the technology and the knowledge to bring everyone together. For the first time in centuries, the Forgotten were not alone. The plan was simple but dangerous. Instead of fighting the Dominion ships directly, they would make it impossible for the Dominion to do their job. The Kithara would hide their most important people in underground shelters. The Veltar would use their mining equipment to create traps in the asteroid field. The Quillen would release biological agents that would make the air dangerous for Dominion soldiers to breathe. Remember, Reed told them, we are not trying to destroy their fleet. We are trying to make them go away. If we can make this attack too expensive and too difficult, they will look for easier targets. Elder Nim was worried. Captain, what if they decide to just destroy our planet instead of trying to take it? Reed had thought about this too. Then we make sure the whole galaxy sees what they do. The Dominion gets away with what they do because most people do not know about it. But if everyone sees them destroy a planet full of innocent people, things will change. Amy had been setting up recording equipment that would broadcast everything to the Galactic Communication Network. Captain, we will be able to send the signal to hundreds of worlds. Even if the Dominion tries to stop us, the message will get out. The day of the attack came quickly. The Dominion fleet moved toward the Kithara homeworld like a dark cloud. There were 50 ships in the fleet. Each one was bigger than the horizon's edge. They expected to find a helpless world, full of scared aliens. Instead, they found organized resistance. Kithara ships that had been hidden in the asteroid field came out to attack. Veltar mining drones had turned asteroids into weapons. Quillen biological warfare made the atmosphere around the planet dangerous for Dominion soldiers. The battle was fierce but short. The Dominion ships were not prepared for this kind of fight. They had weapons that could destroy cities, but they could not hit small, fast ships that knew how to hide. After 6 hours of fighting, the Dominion fleet retreated. Reed watched the enemy ships leave and felt proud of what they had accomplished. But he also knew this was just the beginning. The Dominion would not give up easily. They would come back with more ships and better plans. Amy, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we won the first battle, but we need more help. Tell them the Forgotten are ready to fight for their freedom. Elder Nim's voice came through the communicator. Captain Martinez, we cannot thank you enough. For the first time in generations, we have hope. But what happens now? Reed looked at the star map showing all the red dots where the Forgotten were hiding. Now we help the others. We make sure every species that wants to be free gets a chance. To fight, we make sure the Dominion cannot hide what they do anymore. The Forgotten were not forgotten anymore. They were becoming something new. They were becoming an alliance. Admiral Susan Cross arrived at the edge of the galaxy 3 months later. She brought 20 human ships with her. They were not the biggest ships in the human fleet, but they were fast and they had the newest technology. More importantly, they were full of people who wanted to help the Forgotten. Reed met with Admiral Cross on her flagship, which was called the Defiant. The ship was 3 times bigger than the Horizon's Edge, and it had weapons that could fight a whole fleet. But Admiral Cross was not planning to fight the Dominion directly. "Captain Martinez, you have done good work here," Admiral Cross said. "Earth Command has read all your reports. We know about the Forgotten and we know about the Dominion. We have decided that humanity will not stand by and watch this happen." Reed was glad to hear this, but he was also worried. "Admiral, the Dominion has thousands of ships. Even with our new technology, we cannot fight them all." Admiral Cross smiled. "We are not going to fight them all. We are going to change the rules of the game. The Dominion wins because they attack weak enemies. We are going to make sure there are no more weak enemies." The plan was brilliant. Instead of trying to defeat the Dominion in battle, the humans would give the Forgotten what they needed to defend themselves. Each species would get technology and training that matched their natural abilities. The Cathara would get better communications and shields. The Veltar would get mining equipment that could also be used as weapons. The Quillen would get biological laboratories that could create new medicines and defenses. Paul Kim was the chief engineer on Admiral Cross's ship. He was excited about working with so many different alien species. "Captain, each of these races has skills that we can learn from. The Cathara can build things with crystals that we never thought possible. The Veltar can work in conditions that would kill humans. The Quillen understand biology better than our best scientists." Over the next few weeks, human ships spread across the outer edge of the galaxy. They visited every world where the Forgotten were hiding. They brought supplies and equipment. They also brought something more important. They brought hope. The first real test came when a Dominion harvesting fleet arrived at a Moradi colony. The Moradi were a proud warrior race, but they had been defeated years ago. Most of their people had been killed or enslaved. The survivors were hiding on a small rocky planet that had no resources the Dominion wanted, but the Dominion had decided to use the planet as a base for their operations in that area. They expected to find a few hundred scared aliens who would surrender immediately. Instead, they found a coordinated defense network. The Moradi had been working with human engineers to turn their planet into a fortress. Cathara early warning. Systems detected the Dominion ships while they were still days away. Veltar mining equipment had been used to create underground tunnels and hidden weapon sites. Quillen biological agents had been released into the atmosphere, making it dangerous for Dominion soldiers to breathe without special equipment. The battle lasted for 3 days. The Dominion brought 500 ships, but they could not land on the planet. Every time they tried to send soldiers down, the defenders would attack from hidden positions and then disappear into the tunnels. The Dominion ships could not use their biggest weapons because they needed the planet intact for their base. Finally, the Dominion commander gave up. He took his fleet and left to find an easier target. For the first time in centuries, the Dominion had been turned away. News of the victory spread through the underground communication network that the humans had helped build. Species that had been hiding for generations began to come out of the shadows. They sent messages asking for help. They offered to join the alliance. Reed was back on the Horizon's Edge, helping to coordinate the new alliance. He watched the star map as more and more systems joined them. The red dots that had shown hiding places were now green dots showing allied worlds. "Captain, we now have over 60 species in the alliance," Amy reported. "More are asking to join every day." Don was monitoring Dominion communications. The Dominion leadership is not happy. They are having meetings about what to do. Some of them want to attack us directly. Others want to negotiate. Admiral Cross called a meeting of all the alliance leaders. The meeting was held in Space-On, a neutral space station that had been abandoned for years. Representatives from dozens of species came to discuss their future. Elder Nim represented the Cathara. Cora spoke for the Veltar. Zala came for the Quillen. There were beings that Reed had never seen before. Some looked like walking crystals. Others looked like living clouds of gas. But they all had one thing in common: they were no longer afraid. Friends. Admiral Cross said, "We have won our first victories, but we must be ready for what comes next. The Dominion will not give up easily. They will try to destroy us before we can grow stronger." Cora stood up. Her rocky skin made grinding sounds as she moved. "Admiral Cross, my people have been slaves for 200 years. We know the Dominion better than anyone. They do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. If they cannot control us, they will try to destroy us." Zala's musical voice filled the room. "The Quillen have lost many children to the Dominion. We are willing to fight, but we are still weak compared to them. What can we do if they bring their full fleet against us?" Admiral Cross looked around the room at all the different species. "We do what humans have always done when faced with impossible odds. We use our brains instead of our strength. We make them fight on our terms, not theirs." The plan that emerged from that meeting was complex but elegant. The Alliance would not try to hold territory. Instead, they would be mobile. They would hit Dominion operations and then disappear. They would rescue slaves and refugees. They would make it impossible for the Dominion to operate in the outer galaxy. More importantly, they would document everything. Every attack, every atrocity, every act of cruelty would be recorded and broadcast to the civilized galaxy. The Dominion had gotten away with their crimes because most people did not know about them. The Alliance would make sure everyone knew. "We are not trying to conquer the Dominion," Admiral Cross explained. "We are trying to expose them. We are trying to make the galaxy see what they really are. Once people know the truth, they will not be able to ignore it anymore." The Alliance spent the next month preparing. Human engineers worked with alien scientists to create new technologies. Kithara crystals were used to make communication devices that could not be detected. Veltar mining techniques were used to create hidden bases in asteroids. Quillen biological knowledge was used to create medicines that could help wounded soldiers recover quickly. Reed found himself working with beings he could never have imagined. He learned that the crystal-like beings were called the Threnari, and they could store vast amounts of information in their bodies. The cloud-like beings were the Nethys, and they could travel through space without ships. "Captain," Don said one day, "I have been studying the Dominion fleet movements. They are getting ready for something big. They are pulling ships from all over the galaxy." Reed knew what that meant. The Dominion was preparing for a massive attack. They were going to try to destroy the Alliance before it could grow any stronger. "Amy, send a message to Admiral Cross. Tell her it is time to put our plan into action." The battle that would determine the fate of the Forgotten was about to begin. The Dominion's revenge was swift and terrible. They came not as conquerors but as destroyers. 3 worlds that had joined the Alliance were attacked without warning. The Dominion did not try to capture these worlds or take their resources. They simply destroyed them from space. Reed watched the reports come in from his position on the horizon's edge. The planet Theros, where the Veltar had built their first free city, was now a ball of molten rock. The Quillen research station on Kepler 7 had been vaporized. The Marathi colony that had successfully defended itself just months ago was now nothing but floating debris. "Captain," Amy said with tears in her eyes, "the Dominion is broadcasting their attack to every world." "In the Alliance?" "They want everyone to see what happens when you fight them." The message from the Dominion was simple and brutal. Any world that continued to support the Alliance would face the same fate. Any species that helped humans would be wiped out completely. The Dominion would not just defeat the Alliance, they would erase it from history. Admiral Cross called an emergency meeting of the Alliance Council. The meeting was held on a hidden space station deep in an asteroid field. The mood was very different from their last meeting. Many of the representatives looked scared, some were angry. Others seemed ready to give up. 3 billion people are dead, Cora said. Her rocky voice was filled with grief. 3 billion people who trusted us to keep them safe. How can we ask others to join us when we cannot protect the ones we have? Zala's musical voice was now flat and tired. The Quillen elders are meeting to discuss surrender. They say it is better to be slaves than to be dead. They say we should give up this fight before more innocents die. Other representatives nodded in agreement. The alliance that had seemed so strong just days ago was falling apart. Fear was spreading faster than hope had. Reed stood up to speak. I understand why you are afraid. What the Dominion did was horrible. But giving up now would make those deaths meaningless. The people who died on those worlds knew the risks. They chose to fight anyway because they believed in freedom. Elder Nim's glowing face was dim with sorrow. Captain Martinez, with respect, you are human. Your world is far from here. Your people are safe. It is easy to talk about fighting when you are not the one who will die. Reed felt the weight of every death. He knew that Elder Nim was right. Humans were safe while the Forgotten were dying. But he also knew that giving up would only lead to more death. You are right, Reed said. Earth is safe. But that is exactly why we have to fight. If we do not stop the Dominion here, they will eventually reach every world in the galaxy. They will not stop until they control everything. Admiral Cross stepped forward. The Dominion is making a mistake. They think that by killing innocents, they can scare us into surrender. But they are also showing the galaxy what they really are. Every world that sees these attacks will know that the Dominion cannot be trusted. Dan had been monitoring communications. Across the galaxy, Admiral, the Dominion attacks are causing reactions on other worlds. Many species that stayed neutral before are now asking questions. A Galactic Council is under pressure to respond. The Galactic Council was the government that was supposed to keep peace in the galaxy. It was made up of representatives from hundreds of worlds. But the Council moved slowly and rarely took action against powerful members like the Dominion. We need to force the Council to act, Admiral Cross said. We need to make it impossible for them to ignore what is happening. The plan that emerged was dangerous but necessary. The Alliance would make a stand at a place where the whole galaxy would see. They would choose a battle that could not be hidden or ignored. They would force the Dominion to show their true nature in front of everyone. The location they chose was Kepler's Gate. It was an ancient space station that controlled an important trade route. Ships from all over the galaxy passed through Kepler's Gate. If there was a battle, there thousands of witnesses would see it. We will not try to win this battle, Admiral Cross explained. We will try to survive it long enough for the galaxy to see what the Dominion really is. We will broadcast everything. Every attack on civilians, every war crime, every moment of brutality. The next few weeks were spent preparing for what everyone knew would be the final battle. Alliance ships gathered at Kepler's Gate. Engineers worked to turn the old station into a fortress. Communication equipment was set up to broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. Reed found himself working with beings he had come to think of as friends. The Threnari used their crystal bodies to store massive amounts of information about Dominion war crimes. The Nethys used their ability to travel through space to carry messages to neutral worlds. The Kithara built communication relays that could not be jammed. Captain, Elder Nim said one day, I want to thank you for everything you have done. Even if we lose this battle, we have shown the galaxy that the Forgotten can fight. We have shown that we are not just victims. Reed was touched by the Elder's words. We are not going to lose. We are going to change everything. The Dominion fleet arrived at Kepler's Gate 5 days later. It was the largest fleet anyone had ever seen. Over 2,000 ships filled the space around the station. They had come not just to defeat the Alliance, but to destroy it so completely that no one would ever dare to fight them again. The battle began with a message from the Dominion commander. Surrender now, and we will kill only the humans. Continue to fight, and we will destroy every world that has helped you. Admiral Cross's response was broadcast to the entire galaxy. We are the Free Worlds Alliance. We fight for the right of all beings to live free. We will not surrender to tyrants. The first shots were fired and the battle began. But the real fight was not happening with weapons. It was happening in the hearts and minds of billions of beings across the galaxy who were Watching the battle unfold, Reed watched as Dominion ships began their attack. They were not just trying to defeat the Alliance fleet. They were deliberately targeting civilian areas of the station. They were executing prisoners on open channels. They were doing everything they could to spread terror, but they were also showing the galaxy exactly what kind of monsters they were. Every atrocity was being broadcast to hundreds of worlds. Every war crime was being recorded for history. Captain, Amy said, we are getting messages from all over the galaxy. Neutral worlds are demanding that their governments help us. The Galactic Council is holding an emergency session. Reed smiled even as explosions rocked the station around him. The plan was working. The Dominion had walked into a trap of their own making. In trying to destroy the Alliance, they had destroyed themselves. The battle for Kepler's Gate would determine not just the fate of the Forgotten, but the future of the entire galaxy. The Battle of Kepler's Gate became the moment when the galaxy's conscience finally woke up. Admiral Cross had chosen the location perfectly. The ancient space station sat at the crossroads of the galaxy's major trade routes. Every ship that passed through carried news of what was happening. Every message that went out carried the truth about the Dominion. Reed commanded the Horizon's Dream now. It was a new ship that had been built using both human and alien technology. The ship was faster than anything the Dominion had, and it carried the most advanced communication equipment in the galaxy. Reed's job was to make sure the battle was seen by everyone. The Dominion came with nearly 3,000 ships. They had pulled vessels from every corner of their empire. This was not just an attack on the Alliance. This was meant to be a demonstration of power that would end all resistance forever. Captain, Amy said from her station, we are broadcasting to over 500 worlds. The signal is getting through despite all the Dominion jamming attempts. Reed watched the tactical display as the battle began. The Alliance had only 200 ships, but they were fighting with the desperation of people who had nothing left to lose. The Kithara ships used their crystal technology to create shields that confused Dominion weapons. The Veltar had turned asteroids into mobile weapons platforms. The Quillen were using biological warfare to make space itself hostile to enemy ships, but the real battle was not being fought with weapons. It was being fought with truth. Every moment of the battle was being recorded and broadcast. The galaxy was watching as the Dominion revealed their true nature. The first war crime came within minutes of the battle starting. A Dominion ship captured a small Alliance vessel full of refugees. Instead of taking prisoners, the Dominion commander ordered the ship destroyed. The execution was broadcast on all channels so that other Alliance ships would see it. They want U.S. to be afraid, Elder Nim said over the communication channel. They want us to surrender to save the innocents. Reed felt sick watching the innocent people die, but he also knew that their sacrifice was not in vain. Across the galaxy, millions of beings were watching the same thing. They were seeing what the Dominion really was. The battle continued for hours. The Alliance ships fought with incredible bravery, but they were vastly outnumbered. One by one, they were destroyed or forced to retreat. The Dominion fleet moved closer to the station. Captain, Don reported, the Dominion is sending landing parties to the station. They are not trying to capture it. They are killing everyone they find. Reed watched in horror as Dominion soldiers moved through the station. They were not soldiers fighting a war. They were killers enjoying their work. They executed civilians. They tortured prisoners. They destroyed everything they could not steal, but they were also making a terrible mistake. Every atrocity was being broadcast to the galaxy. Every war crime was being recorded for history. The Dominion thought they were demonstrating their power. Instead, they were showing the galaxy that they were monsters. Amy, are you still getting the signal out? Reed asked. Yes, Captain. The Threnari have created a communication network that cannot be stopped. Even if they destroy our ship, the recordings will keep transmitting, Reed nodded. The plan was working even though the cost was terrible. The Alliance was being destroyed, but the truth was getting out. The galaxy was seeing what the Dominion really was. The turning point came when Dominion forces captured Elder Nim. The old Cathara leader was brought before the Dominion commander on the station. The commander wanted to make an example of him. "This is what happens to those who defy the Dominion," the commander said. The execution was broadcast on all channels. Elder Nim's death was seen by billions of beings across the galaxy, but instead of spreading fear, the execution had the opposite effect. Elder Nim had become a symbol of resistance. His death became a rallying cry for freedom. Across the galaxy, people began to demand action from their governments. "Captain," Amy said with excitement in her voice, "we are getting reports from all over the galaxy. Neutral worlds are mobilizing their fleets. The Galactic Council has called an emergency session. They are voting on military action against the Dominion." Reed could hardly believe what he was hearing. The Galactic Council had ignored the Dominion's crimes for centuries. Now they were finally ready to act. The moment that changed everything came when the Galactic Council fleet arrived at Kepler's gate. It was the largest fleet in galactic history. Ships from hundreds of worlds had come together to stop the Dominion. "This is Fleet Admiral Torres of the Galactic Council," came the transmission. "By unanimous vote of the emergency session, the Dominion is declared an enemy of all civilized worlds. All member species are authorized to use any means necessary to protect innocent life." The battle that followed was swift and decisive. The Dominion fleet was caught between the desperate courage of the Alliance and the overwhelming force of the Council Armada. Many Dominion ships surrendered immediately. Others tried to fight but were quickly overwhelmed. The Dominion commander who had ordered so many atrocities was captured alive. He would face trial for his crimes. The empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries was finally broken. Reed stood on the bridge of his ship and watched as rescue vessels moved through the wreckage. Ships from dozens of species were working together to save survivors and help the wounded. The sight filled him with hope. "Captain," Amy said, "we are getting messages from all over the galaxy. Species that have been hiding for generations are coming out of the shadows. They want to join the Alliance. They want to help build something better." Reed smiled. The forgotten were no longer forgotten. They had become the Free Worlds Alliance. They had shown the galaxy that even the smallest voices could not be silenced when they spoke together. Elder Nim was gone, but his daughter Vera had survived. She came to the bridge of the Horizon's Dream to speak with Reed. Her glowing skin was dim with grief, but her eyes held determination. "Captain Martinez, my father, always said that humans were different from other species. He said you cared about strangers. Now I understand what he meant. You could have stayed safe on your distant world, but you chose to help us instead." Reed felt the weight of all the lives that had been lost. "Your father was a brave leader. He died so that others could be free. We will make sure his sacrifice was not wasted." Over the next few months, the galaxy began to change. The Dominion Empire was broken up, and its member species were given the choice to govern themselves. Many chose to join the Free Worlds Alliance. Others formed their own governments but promised to respect the rights of weaker species. The Galactic Council was reformed with new rules that protected the rights of all species regardless of their size or power. A new peacekeeping force was created with ships and crews from hundreds of worlds. Never again would the strong be allowed to prey on the weak without consequence. Reed found himself appointed as the first human representative to the new council. It was an honor he had never expected. At the first meeting, he looked around the chamber at representatives from across the galaxy. There were beings of every shape and size. Some breathed air while others lived in water or gas. Some communicated with sound while others used light or chemicals, but they all had one thing in common. They all believed that every species had the right to exist in freedom. They all believed that the strong had a duty to protect the weak. They all believed in the dream that Elder Nim had died for. "Friends," Reed said when it was his turn to speak, "we have learned something important. We have learned that the most powerful force in the galaxy is not weapons or technology. It is the simple decision to care about others. It is the choice to stand up for those who cannot stand up for themselves. The applause that followed came from hundreds of different species. It sounded like music. Years passed, and the Free Worlds Alliance grew stronger. The Kythera rebuilt their cities and made them more beautiful than before. The Veltar created new homes in the asteroid fields where they could mine and build in freedom. The Quillen established research stations where they could study life and help it flourish. Humanity took its place as one of many species working together to build a better galaxy. Earth became a center of learning where beings from different worlds could come to study and share knowledge. Human ships continued to explore the unknown regions of space, but now they traveled with crews from many different species. Reed eventually retired from active service, but he never stopped working for the Alliance. He wrote books about the war and the lessons it had taught. He spoke to young beings from all over the galaxy about the importance of standing up for what is right. One day, many years later, Reed was visited by a young Kythera named Nim. He was Elder Nim's grandson, and he was about to take command of his first starship. The ship was called the Elder's Dream, and it was crewed by beings from a dozen different species. "Captain Martinez," young Nim said, "I wanted to thank you before I begin my first mission. My grandfather always said that humans taught us the most important lesson of all. He said you taught us that no one is truly forgotten as long as someone cares enough to remember them." Reed smiled and looked out the window at the busy spaceport. Ships from hundreds of worlds were coming and going. Beings who had once been enemies were now working together. The galaxy had become the kind of place that Elder Nim had dreamed of. "Your grandfather was a wise being," Reed said, "but I think he had it backwards. You taught us something too. You taught us that caring about others is not just the right thing to do, it is the human thing to do. It is what makes us who we are." As young Nim left to begin his journey, Reed thought about how much had changed. The galaxy was not perfect. There were still conflicts and problems. There were still those who sought power over others. But now there were also those who would stand against them. Now there were those who would speak for the voiceless and fight for the forgotten. The war was over, but the real work continued. There would always be new challenges and new threats. There would always be those who needed protection and those who needed hope. But the galaxy had learned an important lesson. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply refuse to look away. Sometimes the greatest strength comes not from conquest, but from the decision to care. Sometimes changing the galaxy begins with a single voice saying that what is happening is wrong and that it must stop. The forgotten had been remembered. The voiceless had found their voice. The galaxy would never be the same.